morning. And the Germans came, and they said, just pack what you can in 2 hands and walk right out. Don't even lock the door.
The Germans came by themselves, or the Hungarians came with them? Hungarian soldiers?
These were all Germans. It was like somebody set the clock, and we do it 4 o'clock in the morning, and the whole town was attacked 4 o'clock in the morning.
What about the Hungarian police or soldiers in the town? They stood aside while the Germans rounded up the Jews?
I don't really know. I think after a while they did get some Hungarians to help along with the rounding.
Okay, so what did you pack?
Nothing. The fact is we were packed. Everybody had like little bags prepared already.
What did you prepare?
Food and some of the clothes, like another set of clothing. And we put on ourselves a lot, like not only just a dress, but a sweater and a coat and top to have, and took comfortable shoes.
Did you take anything personal, like pictures,
Nothing.
diary?
Nothing. We just walked out.
What did your mother do with her jewelry?
It was buried.
And the laughter?
The laughter?
Silverware, the laughter?
No, the laughter was not buried, because it was still on the table on Pesach. It was still on the table.
Where did they take you?
They took us to school. Everybody was in school until everybody was accumulated. And then there were a couple of small towns that had maybe 10 Jewish people and 5 Jewish people living in them. So we waited till all those people were rounded up, and they brought them all into the school. And after we were there for about a day and a half or so, one morning they put the older people on wagons and all the belongings, that they had blankets and stuff, and we went to Dej, 32 kilometers.
While you were in school, the adults talked about what did they think was going to happen? Did they make any plans?
It wasn't like today. They were just talking behind our backs. We really weren't involved in the politics. I don't know if somebody else knows, but I don't really remember anything.
Did your father talk to you at all, or your mother give you any advice?
No, because we didn't believe that it's going to happen. The only thing we had, I remember having a dress with a lot of buttons, and in every button we put in a nugget, a gold nugget. And my parents used to say, this is if you ever need to buy something, food, to survive, so you use this for money. But once we got into Auschwitz, I remember we cut off the buttons and we threw it away, because when we stopped on the way, there were people who told us, if they find gold on you or anything, they're going to kill you. So why don't you give it to me? But they really didn't give it to anybody. We just threw it there in the grass as we went along.
Okay, so they took you to Dej. You had to walk because you were young.
We were walking, yeah. Well, we were walking, the young people, having fun walking, and the older people were on the wagons with the children. We went to Dej into it was in the woods, in a big wooded area that was cut off the woods, and it was surrounded by barbed wires, and that became our camp for 6 weeks. We had to pitch tents. We had to cook on open fire like Indians. Some of the goyim from town came to see us, bought us food, and asked them, they should bring us extra blankets and stuff that we needed. But we were cutting the trees, putting it on the ground, because when it was raining, it sort of was a little hilly. I remember the water just going behind the wood that was put on the ground there for the floor.
Were you put together with the Jews from Dej?
No, everybody went with his own family life. Yeah, they were the same camp. But everybody was we went, our family, so we were together, the family.
Now, you say you were there for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What did you do for 6 weeks?
Okay. The men were taken out every day to work on a railroad track. Every day they were round up in the morning, my father included. Everybody went and worked on the railroad track.
Your father still had his beard?
By that time, my father had to cut his beard.
The Germans made him cut it? Or he
Right,
did-
everybody had to cut their beard. I remember when after my father took his beard off, I didn't recognize him. It was such a different face that it was just very, very. But we always felt that if it has to be done to survive, so we do it.
Your brother went out to work too?
My brother went out to work too. He was still, just a young teenager, maybe 16. My sister went out with the doctor to the hospital in the city. She worked there. In fact, after a couple of weeks going out, she got an idea that she would like to escape.
How did she get such a job that she could work in a hospital?
We were very friendly with the doctor in town, a Jewish doctor. And she went out as a volunteer to work in the hospital. She came down one day saying that the way she goes out every day, she could escape, not come back. And my parents insisted that I go along with her. If she wants to escape, that I have to go. She wouldn't go along. And I didn't want to go. I said, wherever my mother and father goes, I want to go along. And this way she did not go. I heard of other girls who tried to escape and they were shot. But for many years, I always felt guilty that maybe we would have been the lucky ones to escape. And why didn't I go with her? Because then she died in Auschwitz. And I really felt, then I felt very bad and very guilty. For a long time, I felt that maybe we would have been the lucky one to escape.
What did you do in this camp?
What I did in ghetto?
No, in this, yes, in this
Really nothing. We just helped cook and run around and just silly.
Did the Germans bring you food?
No, we didn't get from the Germans food. The Hungarian people brought us
Was there any
food.
kind of organization, Jewish leader of this camp?
Yeah, there were some leaders, yeah.
Do you remember
There was a
their
lot,
names?
no, I don't remember. There was a lot of people there, that they put together.
What did the small children do? Was there any kind of school for them?
No, crying and, being miserable and upset because it was a very unruly life. It was very.
What was the weather like?
Well, it was spring. It was after Pesach. We had some rain. And most of the time it was like spring, nice spring weather.
Did anybody escape from the camp?
No.
Not even none of the young boys decided to leave?
No, I'm telling you, some people, I know of one person who tried to escape and she was shot.
Who watched the camp, the Germans or the Hungarians?
Germans.
Did you see any Hungarian soldiers?
I don't remember.
How did the Germans treat the Jews?
Well, we had nothing to do with them really, just as long as we stayed put.
The men who went out to work on the trains, were they beaten?
Then they weren't beaten, no.
Did the Germans ever come in looking for money?
Oh yes, they came for money and they came to, they seemed like they got themselves some names from who was the richest person in town. Because one Friday, my father was taken down to the interrogation, like was a booth deep in the woods. And they took my father out, and then about noontime they came to take my mother. And I got very upset, and I said to the German in Germany that my mother had heart trouble, and she can't go. So he said, so then you come. And I went. And as I walked into the woods, I saw my father sitting behind the tree, and his shoes were off. What they were doing, used to beat on the sole of the foot and put irons and hot stuff. And I saw my father there, and the only thing that I noticed on him was that he was doing this way. He was shaking his head. So when I went there, they asked me that they heard that my father was a rich man, and that they want to know where our gold and our silver is and money. And I said that we don't have any. He says, what do you mean you don't have? You were rich people. So So I told them my father had a stomach ulcers operation a couple of years before. So I brought that up, and I said my father was sick, and business wasn't good, and we barely survived, and we don't have anything. Well, I know that you buried stuff, and that's when it came in my mind that that's what maybe my father was telling me to say no. And I said, I have no idea about being buried, anything. And like I said, we don't have what to bury. And I insisted that, no. So then they said, take your shoes off. So as I bent down to take my shoes off, I said, well, you could beat me as much as you want. I said, I just don't have anything to produce to you because I don't have anything. And I don't know what happened. They just said, okay, you could go.
What about your father?
My father, then they let us come. I went back and I told them what happened, and my brother and my uncle went and helped my father come back. My father could barely walk. And things were very bad and very sad by this time already. In fact, things were so bad that we were sort of like wishing to go away. And then one day they came and they said, the railroad track is finished, and the wagons just rolled in, and part of the group, the first group, was leaving.
How did they pick the first group?
They did not pick. They gave you the choice. They said, this is the first group, and line up. And like I said, things were so bad that I remember saying, somebody said, Mashana Muka, Mashana Mazel. And I never liked to use that word anymore, because unfortunately it didn't work out. It just became worse. So we were about 30, 35 people in the bag, and my grandparents, my grandfather, my grandmother didn't live, my aunts, uncles, cousins. And
so you went with the first group?
First group, yeah. They pushed you in there, and they threw you in a pail, and they closed the doors, and out they went. We went for 5 days. The way the railroad tracks were built, it went into through lands, through very flat land. You didn't see any houses, you didn't see any towns, nothing. Just the middle of these flat lands was just rolling. They stopped a couple of times, but most of the time we were just watching through the windows, and there was just nothing to see. Till one nice, not so nice day, it was the second day of Shoah. In fact, my birthday was the first day of Shoah. As a child, they always used to make a party for me. And the second day of Shoah, we arrived there in the morning. Then we saw the first time Auschwitz.
On the train, what did you eat?
Just bread and...
Did the Germans give you any water?
No, they opened up sometimes. They gave you a pail of water. But most of the time it was very poor eating.
Was there anybody sick in the car?
Yeah, they were old people.
Anybody died?
I don't remember, because you really just knew on the end when everybody left and the one who didn't leave were dead. But
were there any pregnant women?
I don't think so.
When
But we arrived to Auschwitz.
Day or night?
Day, in the morning, like. And these are the pictures that you see in Yad Vashem and all over the way on the railroad track. There's slows, and everything went just fast, and they helped you out. That's where we first met these Polish inmates, these Jewish Polish in the striped outfits. And they were always talking Yiddish and telling you, if you have any gold, let me have it, because they're going to kill you. And they had taken away quite a bit from people. And all of a sudden, we just noticed that men were separate, women were separate. And I heard my father scream, whoever survived this should go to Israel. And this was the last words that I heard. And before I turned around, my aunts, my mother, my sister, the little one, she was like 13 years old, wasn't there anymore. Only my sister and I were left. And we looked for my aunt. We had a couple of young aunts. None of them. Some had children, so they were all taken away. My sister and I were left. That's it.
Was there this Dr. Mengele standing in the front? Did you see him?
No, Mengele wasn't there then. I met Mengele a couple of times afterwards.
Who did the selection?
The selection. Well, over there by the, they were just Germans doing men right, women left, and then from the, as we were walking 5 in a row, the women, then they were just pulled out, like we young ones, we were just pulled out. Come, 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 and they were just pulled out. The young one and the old one just went, and the children one way. And many of these Jewish, Polish boys used to say, give the baby to the mother, give your baby to the mother. And we couldn't understand why. Because if she had the baby in the hand, she was killed, but this way she could survive. And many of them did give the children away. And they marched us into Auschwitz, into a very big place where they undressed us, and that, I think that was the lowest point of my life. And I'm sure in everybody else's too, when they said, put your clothes, just get out and put them down. And we did, and then they said, just step ahead. And we still kept underwear under us, and then said, take it off. And if we started not, right away they were there with the machine gun gewehr and with the bayonets. Take it off or I kill you right away. Little by little, everybody got undressed, and then they cut our hair down and just turned around. I don't remember recognizing my sister after our heads were shaved. And then they took us into the showers that usually used to be the gas chamber. And then when we started hearing rumors that that's not a shower, those are gas, comes from those faucets. I remember looking up, and I wasn't myself doing it, everybody, and waiting for the water to come. And for a couple of minutes the water didn't come. So we just felt that, this is it, they're killing us. I mean, all this came so fast to us, all this knowledge, this education about being killed, that it was really unbelievable, like in hours and minutes. And then the water started dripping. Whew, what a relief it was. So we took a shower, and after that, they just gave you some schmatter clothes, and they let you keep your shoes. The shoes were all lined up, and you just went back to the shoes. And they took your shoes, and you put on this disinfected schmatter that they gave you, and then they marched us back to Birkenau.
Did you get a number?
No. They didn't tattoo right away. They just tried to. In those times, there were so many people coming in daily that they just didn't have the time to do it.
So you knew for sure you arrived to Auschwitz on Shavuot was the second day?
Second day Shoahs, yes. Second day Shoahs.
Did they give you underwear?
No.
And
Just a dress.
And when you say they kept your you could keep your shoes, could you keep your socks, your stockings?
No. Just the shoes. In fact, I had needles hidden in my shoes in the lining because they took away everything. And being I knew how to sew, I just felt, I don't know why, but I just felt I should have that.
Did you have any money sewn into your clothes?
Yes, but they all took it away. We had like gold chains sewed into collars. And like I said, the buttons, some had gold nuggets, and gold chain in the bottom of a coat. And but then, of course, the Germans took it all away, because when they cleaned those, they took it away, they took everything apart, just like they took the teeth out of the dead people's mouth.
They marched you to Birkenau. Who marched you?
The Germans.
And when you got to Birkenau?
They took us, Birkenau had the lagers, and every lager had 32 barracks. Every barrack had 1,000 people. So it started by the door where it says Arbeit macht frei, and we walked through to block 29, and we went into this block. And the day was getting, it was getting already towards dark, and no food, no nothing, and people were crying and screaming. The young mothers were screaming for their children, and children were screaming for the parents and sisters, and it was chaos. It was so terrible. And then one of the couples opened up the two big doors, as I showed you in the picture, from that black.
You want to show them to me again in the picture?
Yeah. She opened those doors, and she said, "Yeah, this is the entrance of Auschwitz," and on top of it, and this is the barrack where I lost my sister. This is how a barrack looked. Now, you see those two doors, those two big doors here? She opened that up, and when she opened that up, we faced two big chimneys. The two big chimneys were the crematorium. Yeah. That was one of the chimneys from
so
the
you were able to see it from your barrack?
We did not see this, but we saw the flames coming up, like 2-3 feet high flames coming up from this crematorium. And she said, "You see those flames? This is where your loved ones are already. There is nobody left alive from your group. They all were killed and burned. Now you want to survive? Save your energy and try to concentrate on surviving, because you will never see your loved ones again."
What was your reaction? Did you believe her?
Yes, we believed her, and we were all in a terrible shock, because it got so quiet in that barrack that you could hear a pin drop, and everybody just was mesmerized. It was just we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it, and meanwhile it looked like it was true.
This couple, where was she from?
We had one from Belgium, one from Poland. She was the head couple. And another one, I don't know, the other one from Sweden or somewhere. They were two, we were one. The Lagerel's, the one from Poland, her name was Lola. She was a beautiful red-haired. Her hair was already long. She was there about 3 years already. She used to walk around in beautiful clothes. She used to take those clothes that we bought in, and she was wearing those.
So she didn't have to wear the uniform?
No. We had no uniform. They were only schmatters, clothes, all junky clothes that they gave us. Many people who were big and tall got a small dress, and a small girl got a big dress. So we used to switch around on the thing.
Okay, what happened that first night? Now it's nighttime.
Yeah.
You heard the
We heard
news.
the news. We tried to go to sleep, and
just
we
were
had no
sleeping.
blankets. The barracks had 3 layers made out of wood, and on every one there were 6 girls. And they were so tight that if somebody wanted to turn, then everybody had to turn. And we tried to lay down there. It was hard wood, and it was very, very hard. We couldn't sleep. It was.
Were you together with your sister?
Yes, we stuck together with my sister.
So you were 2. Who were the other 4 girls?
From my hometown, from the ghetto, and other girls there.
Okay. So you tried to sleep that first night.
We tried to
You
sleep.
didn't get any food.
No. 5 o'clock in the morning, we were woken up at Zelappel,
Who woke you?
the Germans.
Not the couple.
The Germans came to the door, and then the couples were here.
Okay.
And we were lined up, and they used to stay there maybe sometimes an hour till they came to count you. And if you didn't look right, you got a couple of slaps in the face too. So when we used to line up to stay 5, nobody wanted to stay in the first row. Everybody tried to be in the back, that they shouldn't be noticed. So in the morning they gave you some tea, they called it, some kind of a dark water, bitter. I remember the minute I took it in my mouth, I just threw it up. And I started crying, and I was crying. I was so cold, and all the time I was crying. In fact, 10 years after I came to America, I met a lady in the Catskills. She came over to me and she said, you know, I know you from somewhere. Anyway, we started working out, and we just couldn't find out from where. Next day, she comes over to me and she said, you were in Auschwitz? You were in Block 29? You cried every morning because you were cold? You had a sister with you? And she gave me all these details. And I said, yes. She said, now I know where I know you from. And that was 10 years after I was in America. Every morning I cried. That was my Moidiani. And the whole day, you know, it was very hot. They gave you food. Lunchtime, it was like green grass with potato, a little potato. And
did they give you a bowl?
yeah, we had bowls, not uniform bowls. We had pots, all kind of sizes and shapes. And they gave you the food, and they had medication in it. They had like a tranquilizer, because I don't think that anybody on a normal head could have been able to take all that. And they had another medication that stopped the period. Because could you imagine 32,000 people in one camp? What the situation would have been. So we ate this food, and at night we used to get a very small piece of sawdust bread with something on it. Teaspoon of jam or just something, but everything was so little, it was so not enough that you didn't know what to do. Should you eat it at once? Should you save it? What to do if you saved it? You expose yourself of being stolen, taken away by somebody else. So it was very, like I said, I don't think if we would have not get that medication that we could have survived it. So we were there. I was there for 5 months.
Did you do any work?
Not really. What we were doing was schlep machines from one camp to the other, and nothing specific. And most of the time we just sat and tried to save your energy. And then every week Mangala used to come to make a collection. And my sister had a dark complexion with dark brown eyes, and I had blue eyes. So we were always separated. So we used to work the whole day how to get back together. But it always worked.
Why did he separate you?
Because they used to pick blue eyes. Like they used to have a commander for blue eyes today. Today we only pick blue eyes girl.
To do what?
To work in the laundry or do other things. So